This volume today is from a series of books called The Horror World of Junji Ito. There's 16 volumes, but the only first 3 officially translated. This one today is the 3rd one in the series called Flesh Colored Horror. There's going to be chapters that look familiar because they're topics of past videos, so I'll label the new chapters. But I'll introduce y'all to the Flesh Colored Horror. Long Hair in the Attic by Junji Ito. This couple's in a car, the man is driving, suddenly he stops and tells her to get out, not to call him anymore. He knows she tried her best with her hair, her lipstick, her clothes. It's not gonna work out, so it's better not to see each other anymore. He says he appreciates it, but don't cling. She's better off with an honest guy. We find out the girl's name is Chimi. This part really shows his character. He tells Chimi that he's a playboy. He doesn't deserve any better than a playgirl, then tells her goodbye. She steps out of the car. He drives away. When Chimi enters her house, her sister Ari greets her and tells her that they have mice and thinks that held up right above her room. Chimi gives her a depressing yeah and walks to her room. While Chimi is taking off her coat, she hears the mice steps above her. She grabs a ruler, then begins to hit the ceiling wherever she hears the steps. Ari walks in the room saying, "You hear them?" Well, obviously, because she's banging on the damn walls. Chimi tells Ari they need mouse traps, but Ari says that they already put them up. Maybe the mice are clever. Now Ari is in the kitchen with the dad. He asks if Chimi is home. She says yeah, but she looks kind of depressed. It cuts to Chimi burning a photo of her and her boyfriend. Her boyfriend's name is Hiratsuka. Chimi begins to reminisce on where the photo was taken at the beach. It was her first time seeing the ocean because no one has ever taken her there before. Hiratsuka says that he'll take her whenever she wants. Then they look at each other. He asks Chimi to grow out her hair. She starts to tease him, and he says, "Come on, grow it out. I bet it'll look great." Chimi's smiling, remembering this moment. Ari is coming up the stairs, realizing maybe it's boyfriend troubles. She looks around the corner and hears crying. She opens Chimi's door. She's laying on the bed. It's morning now. The dad is walking with golf clubs. He notices Chimi's light is on, thinking it's kind of early for her to be up, but nonetheless, he goes on his merry way. Chimi wakes up, then notices a mouse stuck in her hair. She goes to the bathroom. She begins to wash her hair. She thinks, how could a mouse get stuck in my hair? Then realizes it doesn't matter. She's going to get rid of her hair anyways. Good riddance. Next, Chimi is staring at the mirror. Ari says, "Are you sure you want to cut your hair? I thought you liked it long." Chimi responds that a mouse got tangled in it. Ari just gives it the okay kind of look. Ari goes downstairs to ask the mom for the scissors and says Chimi wants to cut her hair. Then suddenly a scream is heard. Ari rushes up the stairs saying, "What's the matter?" She opens the door. Chimi's body's laying lifeless with no head. Blood everywhere. Ari's screaming. Her head. The mom rushes up. Ari tells the mom her head's gone. All the people are standing outside of the house trying to understand what just happened. Some are saying the killer got away with their head and we had to go after them. One man's talking with Ari, but she's screaming, saying it's the mice that chewed it off. Another man hears it and says, "No, it can't be. It was done with a sharp blade." One bystander is asking the mom, "Where's the dad? It's Sunday. Shouldn't he be home?" She responds that he's probably out playing golf. He's trying to calm her down. The police finally arrive. Next panel shows it's nighttime, outside someone's house. The phone rings. Hiratsuka answers, and he's like, "You know what time it is?" Then asks, "Who is it?" Then he hears a crunch. Then he thinks he understands and says, "I get it. Chimi, is this you? Are you trying to provoke me now that I broke up with you? This is pretty bent, you know that." A loud sound comes from the phone, then it hangs up. Hiratsuka thinks, "What was that about?" Then says, "Wait, it can't be Chimi. She died a week ago." A real shame. She was a good looking woman. She never really expressed how she felt, especially not to me. She tried so hard to please me. She got stressed over things. When I heard, I thought for sure she committed the S word. Hiratsuka says, "Why do you think it was Chimi?" It was the sound. It was like how she used to grind her teeth. Suddenly he hears sounds within his house. It cuts back to Ari asking her dad, "Where's the flashlight?" He hands it to her, but asks, "What's it for?" She responds that she's going to check in the attic. She hasn't heard mice in a while, so maybe the traps did their job. The dad tells her to hang on. He'll go check. Chimi died upstairs. He won't let that happen to the both of them. Ari tries to convince him not to because his heart condition. He tells her to wait down there. The dad's crawling around the attic, looking for the traps. Ari notices he's been taking his time, then asks if he found any mice. She looks in the attic and sees the dad in shock. Goes over to him and asks what's wrong, shaking him, begging him. Thinking he's dead, he drops the flashlight. Ari looks in the direction and sees her sister's head dangling by hair. Ari says, "Who would have done this? She gotta get her down." She grabs the hair, but it's covered in blood, and goes to grab the scissors. Zoomed in view of the Chimi's face, eyelids, her mouth getting pulled in different directions by hair. Ari suddenly hears grit. Chimi's head bites down and begins to swing, then falls down. Somehow gets out of the attic, Down the stairs, Aries calling out to her sister, "Wait, are you still alive?" Suddenly the hair is pulled in different directions, grabbing onto the walls, holding the head up. Aries realizes no, it's not that she's alive, it is the hair. The hair killed her. It has a will of its own. Before long, the hair writhed back to life, snaked its way out of the house and vanished. It seemed to know where it was headed. Now, at Hiratsuka's house, he's looking up, pleading to the hair to leave him alone. Approval by Junji Ito. It starts with this couple. The boyfriend is at the girlfriend's house asking the father for permission to marry his daughter, but no matter how many times he asks, won't let him marry her because she already has an offer of marriage. The dad calls for his son, Setsuo, to tell Kyosuke, that's the boyfriend's name. Setsuo tells him he shouldn't marry his sister, Miss Yuzu, that's the girlfriend's name, because he belongs of a lower class and he's not going to be able to make her happy, so leave. The dad also tells him to leave. He doesn't want to see his face. Miss Yuzu tries to talk to him, but the dad yells for him to get lost. Out of the house, Kyosuke says that he can't take it anymore. He did what he could. Eloping is the only way out and says he knows she doesn't have the courage for that, so if she still wants her father's consent, it's over. He says goodbye and walks off. Later on, he's thinking to himself, how many times has he visited Miss Yuzu's house? He can't believe he was that patient, but that's over. He won't see Miss Yuzu. While in this thought, a woman walks up behind him and asks him to take the teeth mode, but he was completely zoned out. The coworker says he looks depressed. Kyosuke says nothing and gets back to work. After work, Kyosuke is walking with that girl, Yuko, from earlier. She's asking what's wrong. Everybody is worried about him. Then says maybe he's having problems with his girlfriend. Kyosuke responds, yes, he broke up with her. Yuko backtracks after coming off nosy. Kyosuke says not to worry because it happened 3 weeks ago, then offers her a ride. After some hesitation, she agrees. The next panel shows that they're on some date, talking about each other's future. Kyosuke asks if she's going to be at Okazaki's dentist for a long time, but she responds she'll quit after she gets married. Kyosuke said he'll be on his own one day and be so successful that it will make his old man sorry. Old man referring to his dad. Yuko then gasses him up, saying he'll be a successful orthodontist. Everyone at work sees how good he is. The date is over. Kyosuke is driving her home. Yuko says that she had a great time and asks if they can do this again. In narration, Kyosuke says that this is when he started to like Yuko. Kyosuke gets home and Setsuo is there waiting for him. Now they're in Kyosuke's apartment. He asks Setsuo what brings him here. He responds that he has a favor to ask, but before that, he asks Kyosuke if he still loves his sister, because if so, he wants him to come to the house and talk with his father to marry his sister. Kyosuke gets mad and says, did you forget what you told me? Setsuo apologizes for what he says and gives him a box that has his father's favorite drink in it and says to bring this when he comes over. Miss Yuzu will call a cab to pick him up tonight. Just get in and it'll take him to their house. Kyosuke's like, hey, I didn't say I'll go. Setsuo says he knows he'll go because he still loves her. Also, Miss Yuzu loves him too. She realized that after he left. So as her brother, he had to do something about it. He'll see him tonight and walks off. Time passes. Suddenly, Kyosuke hears a ring at the door. He opens the door. It's Miss Yuzu. She's there to pick him up. After they arrive at their house, they're staying together. The brother is vouching for Kyosuke, saying, Father, why don't you let them get married? And Kyosuke's a nice guy, but the dad still refuses. He won't let him marry Miss Yuzu. Miss Yuzu tells her dad that they won't give up until he says yes. The three of them are outside. The brother talks about how that didn't go well, and that the cab is coming soon. He leaves them alone. Miss Yuzu tells Kyosuke that he was quiet tonight. Is something on his mind? He says not really. She was worried that might have found someone else, since they didn't see each other for a whole month. She asks if he is seeing anyone. He responds no, while Setsuo watches from the door. The next day, Yuko gives Kyosuke a late Valentine's Day gift and says that since he broke up with his girlfriend, she assumed that he didn't get anything this year. Then Yuko wants to come over to his place to fix up some dinner. Later that night, they're enjoying their meal. Kyosuke goes in for a kiss but gets interrupted by a ring at the front door. Yuko goes and answers the door. She comes back saying it's a girl named Fukatsu or Miss Yuzu, same person. He comes to the door. Miss Yuzu says that she's here to pick him up. Suddenly they're both in the car. Miss Yuzu is asking, who's that girl? Is that your new girlfriend? Kyosuke then tells the driver to stop, that he's getting out, but before leaving he tells her he realized that he's in love with Yuko and that he's going back and says his goodbye. The car drives away while Miss Yuzu looks back crying. Narration says Yuko didn't come to work the next day and that she had a fever. He starts to think, did he hurt her feelings last night? And that after work, he'll go see her. He goes by her place and gets the news that she's at the hospital, that she got really sick that afternoon while driving. He thinks hospitalized? This must be serious. He's at the hospital. He reaches her room holding flowers, but once he opens the door, he drops them and sees people crying over Yuko's body. At his apartment, he's thinking, why does she have to go so soon? And starts to blame himself. It's his fault she died, and continues to beg for forgiveness from Yuko. Someone's ringing the doorbell while he's having this moment. He ignores it until he hears the door open. It's Miss Yuzu. She tells him that she couldn't forget about him, so she decided to come over and ask why he's crying. He responds, she died. Miss Yuzu and him cried all night. He cried for Yuko, while Miss Yuzu cried for him. Time passes. Kayasuke is in his 30s, and he keeps visiting Miss Yuzu's house regularly. Since that night, Miss Yuzu and him became a couple again. His father keeps saying no. Miss Yuzu looks so sad, but she always looks so lovely. Next, they're outside. Setsuo tells Kayasuke it's not hopeless. You're not giving up, are you? Kayasuke says that he'll never give up, no matter how old he gets, but his only concern is Miss Yuzu will get old too as this goes on. Kayasuke and Miss Yuzu are walking to the car. Kayasuke realizes that he forgot his bag, and he goes back and gets it. While he walks back, he overhears the dad talking to Setsuo, asking, he's not giving up, is he? Setsuo says no. He'll never change his mind. The dad says good. You know it's a lot of work, but it makes his life worth living. Then says, Setsuo, do you understand how I feel? My dearest daughter taken away by that man? What a shame. Kayasuke will never stop asking for my approval, but he'll never get what he wants. Then they both start laughing. Kayasuke thinks that they've been playing with his emotions all this time. And also, does Miss Yuzu know about this? Kayasuke runs back to the car for Miss Yuzu. She's nowhere to be found. The next panel shows that they're back at their house. The dad refuses Kayasuke to marry his daughter. You know, the same thing again. But Kayasuke brought him his favorite drink that day and says, hope he likes it. The dad says gifts won't change his mind. Little by little, the poison in the drinks will take effect. He doesn't care if they find out. He'll just deal with it. He just doesn't want this plan to fail. His death will be all the approval he needs. As soon as he dies, he'll marry Miss Yuzu. Luckily, the dad likes to drink. One interaction, the dad is telling Kayasuke that he lost some weight and he needs to start eating better. Kayasuke, thinking in his head that he'll have no time to worry about others, and keeps giving them poison drinks, gradually spiking him with larger doses of poison. As time went on, he began to soften. He was clearly getting weaker. Kayasuke says good. He's almost there. Soon he'll get the approval. Next scene, they're at the hospital. The dad is on the bed. Setsuo is next to him, asking if he can hear him, and says Miss Yuzu and Kayasuke are here. Kayasuke asks the dad how he feels. He responds that he's not gonna make it. Kayasuke says don't say that. The dad asks how long he's known him. Kayasuke responds 13 years. The dad says, wow, it's really been that long? Then says Kayasuke, you should know that Miss Yuzu was really in love with you. When she broke up with you that one time, she told me that her love was real, but I couldn't let myself admit it. She offed herself a few days later. After that, Setsuo saw her spirit. Her spirit asked him for help to convince me. Then her spirit began to appear with you, but I still don't approve the marriage. It was too late after all. How could I let you marry my dead daughter? But that was just an excuse. I just wanted to see my daughter. The spirit shows up with you. I used you so I could see Miss Yuzu. I miss my daughter. I used you all these years just to keep seeing her. The dad has been fooling Kayasuke. Miss Yuzu's already dead. Then asks for forgiveness. Then he passes away. Kayasuke's thinking it's a lie. Miss Yuzu's right here, but turns around, she's gone. Kayasuke is at his apartment thinking maybe Yuko died because she was cursed by Miss Yuzu, and says that he looked like a ghost now. Could this be her curse too? Kayasuke narrates saying, Miss Yuzu comes to me every night with a cheerful look. She beckons me from far away from my apartment door. I could hear her say, Kayasuke, our marriage is finally approved. Behive by Junji Ito. It starts with a couple, Takano and Yuriko, taking a walk. Yuriko is telling him he doesn't talk about bees anymore, and he used to talk about the bees all the time. Takano responds, collecting beehives is his hobby, and he has other things as well. He's just not into it these days, and tells Yuriko to forget about the bees, and they kiss, but he stops when he notices a giant hornet and says that they're rare around here, then runs after it. Yuriko chases after him and says wait. Takano notices the hornet getting lower, so the nest must be nearby. Yuriko finally catches up to him, saying that she can't believe it's going in that direction, and asks if he found the hive. He responds no, but he doesn't give an answer why he stopped chasing it, which is kind of strange. Takano asks Yuriko to come over to see his collection because he got new ones. Yuriko teases him, I get it, you're scared of the ghost, and says the story about the ghost that you'll hear strange noises that sound like they're coming from a kid. Takano thinks that's ridiculous. Yoriko asks Takano if he knows the weird kid and that he's been missing for a while. Yoriko adds on saying that she met him when she found the beehive under the eaves of her house. It was also the day she met him, Takano. Okay, this is a flashback of that day. Yoriko and I would say her mom are looking at the side of their house and they see a beehive, and the neighbor next door tells them the same thing. He said he had one of them a year ago. Yoriko's mom asks which exterminator he called, but he was like, nah, he had one of the neighborhood kids take the wasps. He did it with his bare hands. Crazy. Watching from the sidewalk is Takano, and the neighbor goes on saying that he was a weird one. He wasn't afraid of the wasps at all, and he kept talking to himself. He thinks he wanted to keep the beehive for himself, but thanks to him, the beehives are gone. The mom asks how she can find the kid. He said he doesn't know, but he sees him from time to time. He said he lives around here. Takano walks up and introduces himself and asks if she doesn't mind, he could take the beehive off their hands. They ask if he's an exterminator, but he's like, nah, I was just passing by, and his hobby is collecting beehives, and this one's a beauty. The mom says yes please and runs to get a ladder. Takano stops her, saying he can't do it now. The wasps are more active during the day, so he'll wait for them to go to sleep at night and come back. Suddenly the kid shows up saying he'll take the beehive for him and asks for the ladder. Yoriko tells him that Takano will take care of it, and it says it'll be dangerous for him. The kid says that Takano uses insecticide and that he can get the hive off without killing the wasps, and adds that this area used to be a forest. People cut down all the trees to build the town. That's why there's so many wasps here. They used to live in the woods, so he thinks people should just leave. But anyways, as for the ladder, I like the blank stares they give him after he does that little speech right there. Once he gets up there, he tells the bees to get inside, and that they're moving. He picks up the hive and gets down. Takano is admiring his skills, and the kid walks away saying he'll keep this one. Takano follows the kid like a creep and says hold it, he was the one that found the beehive, but the kid responds, well, I'm the one that took it down though. Takano says that he's seen him in the woods and asks if he's a collector too, because lately someone's been sneaking around taking the beehives he finds. But he's not saying the kid is the only one, but he is one of them, right? The kid responds saying that he's just saving the hives from suckers like him. The wasps are his friends. Takano tries to take the hive by force, then the wasps fly out of the hive and attack him. Yoriko sees Takano running away, and she rushes to see if he's okay. Takano says yeah, and he looks to where the kid was at, but he's gone now. Yoriko asks if they stung him and why they attack him. Takano jumps to his feet. Yoriko introduces herself and says that she followed him to say thanks. Takano says for what? He didn't do anything, then asks when she moved into town. She responds 3 months ago. Takano says that he said he's been here for a year. He likes how there's a lot of bees. Then after this, they become pals. The next scene is Yoriko walking in the forest for some reason, and she sees Takano. She goes up to him and asks, what's he doing? Takano is using tuna to lure the bees. The ones he's looking at right now are called the black wasps. He makes a food ball for them to take to the larvae, and he marked the tuna with cotton. The cotton acts as a tracer. He'll follow it back to their beehive. They begin to run after the wasps. They follow it back to the cave, so that's where the hive must be. Yoriko wants to go inside with them. Takano stops her, saying that the wasps are vicious and she could get killed. As soon as he enters the cave, he hears loud buzzing. Walking deeper in the cave, Takano sees the kid feeding frogs to the wasps and them crawling on his face. Takano is watching in disbelief. How can different kinds of wasps get along like that? How did the boy bring them here? Takano walks out of the cave and tells Yoriko the hive was smaller than he thought. Takano narrating now, saying that he wanted to pay his respect to the boy for his amazing collection. The boy who's gone missing now. Now back at the present. Yoriko and Takano are chilling looking at his collection. Suddenly, Yoriko brings up the missing boy again and says she thinks someone killed and buried the body in the woods. The rumor said it's a ghost of that boy, and she agrees. The panel transitions to later that night. Takano is walking in the woods with the shovel, thinking to himself that he better replace it before someone hears the rumor and starts digging around. He went back to the cave and ran into that boy. The wasps attack him. Even though he had protective gear on, he panicked and strangled him. Now he sees a marker. Some bee hunters were hunting here during the day. He remembers the hornet he saw earlier and thinks the hive is in the ground. He finds it, then smokes the hive with the insecticide, claiming that he'll get to this one before the kid. I thought he already killed the kid by this point, so he doesn't have to worry about him, but nonetheless, Looking upon the hive, two men see him. Now he hurries to dig it up, but suddenly the hive gets stuck. He stabs the root that's stopping it. He picks it up and runs away while the two men are chasing him. Chikano at home now, admiring his achievement, but then notices blood on his hands. He shrugs it off, thinking that he might have hurt a mole or something when he cut off the root. Then he goes, takes a bath, and calls it a night. The next day, Yuriko is banging on Chikano's door. He opens it, and she says that they found the missing boy. It was found by bee hunters. He was buried in the woods. His head was chopped off. When they found the body, it was still bleeding. They also saw a man run away with the boy's head, and the police are after him. Chikano thinks to himself that he really was buried in the woods, and slams the door on Yuriko. He's walking, thinking, run away with the head. He goes into his collection room and notices the blood coming from his new beehive. He rips part of the hive apart, then sees two eyes of the missing boy. He screams. The head is inside the hive. The giant hornets must have built the beehive around the buried head. But how and why? He thinks about the hornet he saw. He had a big chunk of tuna, so the food was for the boy, and that means he was buried alive. It's hard to believe that the hornets were taking care of the boy, but that's the only explanation. It was his neck, not the root of a tree, so he cut the head off without knowing. Now the hornets are coming out of the hole, and they begin to attack Chikano. The narration, the hornets started to make meatballs from his body to feed the boy. Then they start to mend the broken hive. Soon their home would be whole again. Dying Young by Junji Ito. The story begins with the narration by Ayako, talking about her friend Chizuru, how she got prettier in a month. And they say being young or in love can make a girl prettier, but in Chizuru's case, she became a different person. In the bathroom, Ayako asks Chizuru how she got so pretty, but she doesn't know. Chizuru looks in the mirror, puzzled on how this happened. However, she seems happy with her new looks. Some say she had plastic surgery, but this wasn't true, and she was becoming prettier slowly, like a blossoming flower. Chizuru is walking and these boys are talking about how she used to be one of the ugly trio in their grade, and how can she change like that? But these girls say that she doesn't look healthy though. Ayako agrees. She looks stunning, but also somewhat anemic. In a month, she got even more prettier, and she made every hand turn. By 2.5 months later, she collapsed and died while running. She had a heart attack. Ayako and her friend Hiroko are at the funeral. They dissected her body at the hospital. No one knows why her looks changed. It had nothing to do with her death. While walking together, Hiroko says maybe the saying is true, beauty dies young. Then asks Ayako what would she do if she got pretty like Chizuru. Would you ask out your crush Mizuno? But Ayako tells her to quit joking. They barely got out of their best friend's funeral. Hiroko said it doesn't feel real to her because she was almost like a different person when she passed. A while later, Hiroko started to change, as well as her younger sister too. A month went by and she was almost a different person. This girl, Yukari, starts talking with Hiroko, saying she's pretty and what's her secret. Maybe she can be pretty too if she keeps sitting next to her, hoping it's contagious. The two girls are in the back watching this and say Yukari used to taunt her and the rest of the ugly three. Ayako is sitting in the back of the class alone and someone says the ugly three, huh? It's the ugly one now, while girls are surrounding Hiroko. One says that her acne is gone. Does this mean that she's the next to be pretty? Next scene is Ayako looking out the window and hears someone explain a math problem. She turns around, it's Mizuno explaining the problem to Hiroko, and even after class they are still interacting with each other while Ayako is watching from a distance. Ayako are going to walk home together. Hiroko stops at her locker and asks Ayako what's wrong, but when she opens her locker, these letters fall out, and she says that she's been getting a lot of them lately and she never got one when she was ugly. While walking, Hiroko asks Ayako how she feels about Mizuno. She responds saying that she has no feelings towards him. Then Hiroko tells Ayako she should get pretty too and says she doesn't know how Chizuru got it, but she got it from her. Ayako responds saying it's not going to happen to her. Hiroko reassures her, saying it will. Even Yukari got it, even though she didn't want her to. Hiroko was right. Ayako could see the changes in Yukari. She looked just like Hiroko, somewhat anemic. It became widely known among the girls. They started surrounding Hiroko and Yukari. The girls touched them every chance they got, trying to catch whatever they had. The number of pretty yet anemic girls grew. These girls are talking about how she got prettier and she's with Mizuno. Then they look back at Ayako saying that she hasn't changed a bit. Maybe she's immune. These guys near the window are talking about how 1/4 of the girls have changed, and it is very strange. They can't find an explanation why. How can someone's look transform like that? And says it only affects girls. One of the guys says maybe it's just a strange theory, but also thinks thinks it's because the end of the century is coming and explains a lot of strange things happen near the end of the century's past. Look at these girls. Don't you think their beauty signifies the end of a century? Suddenly, Hiroko sees her sister, Kari. She walks up to her asking why she's alone here. Kari responds saying she feels sick, then faints. Hiroko is trying to wake her up, then realizes she can't feel a pulse. Mizuno runs to get help. Kari died that day. A week later, Yukari died, and 2 days after that, another girl died. The coming days, all the pretty girls were dying. The constant deaths started a rumor that all the dead girls were infected with a disease that makes you beautiful before you die. Ayako is walking around the school and sees different groups of girls comforting each other. Some saying, "Are we dying too? I don't want to die yet." Ayako says mourning to Hiroko. Hiroko responds saying, "Good for them. They used to thank me and follow me. Now they all ignore me, even Mizuno," and says that she has no regrets. She'd rather die young and pretty than be ugly and old. And says she doesn't believe the rumors and says, "Look at me, I'm still okay." What does that say? Ayako agrees. Hiroko also says there's all sorts of rumors going around, and there's this new one saying that the disease is deadly, but there's only one way to survive. Kill a girl of your age on the 3rd Friday of every month, and you won't lose your life or your looks. And says it sounds so dumb, it's not that easy. Looks aren't worth your life. The death of girls went on. Hospitals were crowded with frightened girls. Doctor after doctor looked for the cause of the disease, but its cause was never found, with no causative factor. No one could verify its infectivity. One of the teacher's theory of an end of the century disease proved persuasive. It transitions to Ayako in her room one night, saying that lately her friends don't come to school, even Hiroko, and thinks maybe she should visit her, and looks out the window and sees 3 girls walking and thinks she looks sick. It must be Hiroko. And where are they going at this time of night? One of the girls asks Hiroko if they're going to find someone. She responds someone must be out here. Also asks if the rumor is true. Hiroko says, "Who knows, but we have to try," and asks the girls the favor to let her be the first one. She's been feeling so sick and that she needs to hurry or she can die. Ayako thinks, today is the 3rd Friday. Are they going to kill someone? This guy says goodbye to his classmate and is walking down an alley. The 3 girls see him. Hiroko yells, "I've got to stay alive," and takes the knife out of her jacket and runs towards the man. Then suddenly, Ayako yells for Hiroko to stop. The 3 girls turn around. The guy runs away, yelling for someone to help him. One of the girls with the dark hair says that she'll do it and that Hiroko lost her turn. She runs after the guy while Hiroko and the other girl stay in corner Ayako. The girl with the dark hair then turns the corner and sees another pretty girl crouched over the guy who ran away. He's dead now, talking to herself. "I did it. If the rumors are true, I won't die," and laughs. Meanwhile, Hiroko is confronting Ayako. She can't believe she stopped her. Ayako responds, "Don't be crazy. Don't you realize it's a stupid rumor? How can killing someone save your life?" Hiroko tells the other girl to hold Ayako so she could stab her. The other girl says she doesn't want to and walks away. Ayako tells her, "Please don't do it." Hiroko tells her to shut up. "Who do you think you are? You don't understand how I feel. You get to see the 21st century, but not me," and run towards her with the knife. "An ugly girl like you should be the one dying." While running, she dies, drops the knife, and falls into Ayako's arms. Narration: the end of the 20th century. A strange sickness was going around. Headless Sculptures by Junji Ito. It starts with these 3 people in the art room. One guy apologizing to Rumi, saying that he can't walk with her today because he's staying with Mr. Okabe, the teacher. But Okabe is like, "Hey, you should go home. Shimada, he can take care of the rest." Shimada says that he doesn't have to go because his parents are out of town, and he doesn't want him to miss the deadline for the opening of his exhibit. Rumi chimes in, saying Okabe work is unique, headless sculptures of all varieties, and that he may even be famous one day. Okabe responds, saying that he doesn't make them headless because he was lazy. Admitted, face has limitless possibilities. That is his message. Then says that faces are pointless in art. Human faces express so much, but the faces in famous paintings, with few exceptions, those faces show either no expressions or thin smiles. When Rumi's about to leave, Shimada asks her not to tell anyone that he's staying late. She says, "I know," and says goodbye and sees him tomorrow. While walking down the hallway, Rumi thinks the old building is spooky, with only one room being open, that is the art room, while the rest are dark and empty classrooms. They're brave to stay here so late. The next day, Rumi shows up to Shimada's place, rings the bell, but no response. Thinking that he's not going to answer because he stayed up late, he suddenly responds through the intercom or the doorbell, asking, "Who is it?" Rumi says hurry because they're going to be late. Shimada tells Rumi that he doesn't feel good, that he's going to be absent. Rumi then asks if he's okay, but he stops responding. Rumi's walking to school, sees a police car, is wondering what's going on, and one of the girls tell her that Mr. Okabe was killed and said that the student found him dead in the art room. His head was gone. Rumi overhears other people talking about that he stayed late preparing for his exhibit and that he was alone. They don't allow students to stay late and no one saw anything. The murder took place around midnight. It could be a psycho who did this. No classes were held after emergency meeting. All students were sent home. Next, Rumi is walking from school. She's thinking how she's the only one who knows about Shimada and that she almost told him, but because she didn't want him to get in trouble. She walks to his door, but something stopped her from ringing the bell. She just went home. The next day, Shimada shows up to school. At the end of the day, Rumi is minding her business, then suddenly hears a voice asking if she's going home alone, and it's Shimada. He tells her that she didn't come by this morning. Rumi apologizes, saying that she was in a hurry, and asks if he still has that code. Shimada responds that he got lovesick. Rumi changes the subject, asking if he heard about Mr. Okabe, and that she can't believe it, and asks if he has any idea who did it. Maybe he saw someone suspicious. He responds he doesn't know. Then he says, well, we're all thinking, you think I killed him, huh? Rumi quickly denies it, but asks why would she though? Shimada's like, well, I was the last one who saw him before he died. Rumi tells him that he's acting weird. Shimada continues to talk nonsense on how he waits for her to come to the art room and says, do you know how my heart was bearing when I saw you there? Then asks her to take a walk with him. Somewhere else at the school, an intercom goes off saying, attention students, it's time to go home. All students must leave the school premises. Now it shows these two girls. The girl without glasses is Masame, and the one with them is Sani. Masame is asking Sani to go to the art room with her because she left her books there and that she needs them for a test tomorrow. Sani's like, the art room's off limits. Masame drags her there anyways, saying no one's gonna know. They're walking in the hallway, talking about how there was a murder here 2 days ago. They finally reach the art room. Masame points to the ground. The floor's covered. That's where Mr. Okabe's body was laying. The floor must be stained with blood. They walk around the covered floor, talking about how cruel it is and can't believe someone cut off his head. Sani is getting nervous, asking Masame to hurry. Suddenly they hear a loud clank. They look at the door. There's an outline of a head. Doorknob begins to turn. Once the door opens, it's Mr. Okabe. It cuts to Rumi and Shimada. Outside, I guess. Shimada tells Rumi that Mr. Okabe is alive, and he says it's true. A situation forced him to hide in the old buildings and that he's going to see him tonight. Rumi responds, but whose body was that? Then she notices the doors have been opened. Shimada insists she goes with them to see Okabe. He sticks out his hand. Rumi grabs it, noticing he's wearing gloves and his hand feels hard. They will enter the art room. Shimada tells her that they'll wait here until he comes. Rumi asks, you smell that? They like it's spoiled, and begins to say that all the sculptures except one are gone. Did the police take them? And only the stands are left. Weird. Shimada locks the door behind him, turns around, takes off his mask. He's bleeding from his mouth. Rumi asks what's wrong. He responds nothing, but his mouth didn't move when he said that. Rumi notices this too, asking where did that voice come from. She asks, where's Mr. Okabe? Shimada responds, he's been in the room the entire time. He walks towards the sculpture, pulls off the cover revealing Mr. Okabe's head on it. He takes it off, saying, here goes the great artist Mr. Okabe, then drops the head on the ground. Shimada looks towards Rumi, saying, you got a pretty face, and walks closer and closer to her while saying her name. She slaps him. His head does a full 360 and falls off. She begins to scream, but the sculpture continues to walk towards her. Rumi runs, calling for help. Then she falls to the ground. She notices a stool. She grabs it, hits his legs. Shimada's body falls over, laying with a broken leg. Rumi wonders why. She grabs the key, rushes to the door, but it won't open. In the background, the sculpture begins to move. It grabs a butcher type of knife, walks towards her, saying, why you? How could you kill my fiance? You, give me your head, give it to me. Closer and closer until Rumi is finally able to open the door. She runs out into the hallway. A sculpture is blocking the exit. Then the two sculptures begin to chase her. She runs upstairs, enters a room, thinking she's safe, and finds 3 headless bodies on the floor, thinking to herself that the sculptures took their heads. But who are these two? Rumi looks up and sees many sculptures fighting for the heads. Then the sculpture, who has Sani's head, notices Rumi, saying that her face is mine, then runs towards her and grabs her neck while another sculpture breaks the window to the door and reaching in, the 2 sculptures saying, give me your head. Flesh-Colored Horror by Junji Ito. This story begins with a woman named Momoko Takagawa. She is walking down a dark street from work by herself. You know, some red flags are going up here. Nonetheless, she thinks that she should have taken the main street. While in this thought, a mysterious figure is walking behind her. She even heard rumors of monsters walking these streets. Suddenly, the mysterious figure runs towards her, splashes her with a bucket full of unknown liquid, and in complete shock, Momoko's like, it smells so bad, how could she? She's finally home, the unknown liquid dries, and she's trying to pull it off. It's like some kind of glue. At the end, she had no choice but to cut her hair. The next day, she goes to work. It turns out Momoko is a kindergarten teacher. All her students notices her new hair. She's telling a fellow teacher what happened. The teacher says she heard things like that are common lately. The scene transitions to these kids playing on this seesaw. A student off the panel walks up to one of the kids, saying, "Hey, Yuta, it's my turn." The kid says no way, but once he turns around, it's a student that looks disturbing. You know, no offense to the guy. And we see his name is Chikara. The disturbing kid says, "What'd you just say?" Next thing we know, Yuta's on the floor crying. Momoko runs over to him and asks what happened. He says that Chikara scratched him, but it seems that this isn't the first time this happened. Momoko says that she told him before to play nice, but now Momoko wants Chikara to apologize to Yuta, but Chikara just gives her a glare and walks away. The other teacher says that he's so violent and his looks scare her, and sometimes he pops out of nowhere. Momoko says that his mother is very young and pretty. Hopefully he'll look like her one day. Chikara is in the classroom tearing up the paintings, and the students call for Momoko to stop him as she tells him, "Why'd you tear up our work? We worked so hard on these. Tell me why." Chikara responds, "I'm not tearing. This is peeling." She got tired of his smart mouth. The student in the back says, "Yeah, that's right, you annoyed." Chikara threatens Kosuke, the one who said that, saying, "Do you want me to peel the skin off your face?" It's finally after school. The parents are picking up the students. Momoko gives a narration saying that the other kids were truly afraid of Chikara's looks, brutality, and devilish behavior. Chikara is sitting alone in the corner. Then this woman, we think is the mother, comes up to him and says, "Let's go home." Momoko runs up to them before they leave and introduces herself and says that she's about to go home too, and asks if she minds if they walk together. So they're walking together. Momoko talks about Chikara, that he isn't very outgoing. He doesn't show too much emotion and gets violent from time to time. In her opinion, he seemed a little disturbed. Maybe he's hungry for attention? His mother responds, maybe his father passing away has something to do with it. Momoko says that she can make up for it, and the mother agrees, and just says that Chikara is a lonely child. Momoko thinks to herself, how can the mother talk like this? Like he's someone else's child. Momoko asks if it's alright for her to visit their home. She agrees. They arrive at the house. Momoko's suspicions seem to be true because this woman asks Momoko to wait outside just a second, so she'll go inside to get Chikara's mom. They just live together. His mother is her older sister. Chikara's mom comes to the door and introduces herself and says, "Thanks for being a good teacher to my son." Momoko apologizes for popping up like this. Chikara says not a problem at all, saying that she's always taking a bath anyways. They're sitting in the living room. The walls seem to have wallpaper peeling off. Chikara scolds her son, saying that he rips them off right away, so there's no use of changing the wallpaper. Momoko talks about her experience. Something about her was off. She felt perplexed by her and can't remember what they talked about. His mother spoke with no expression on her face, but remembers she acted like she loved Chikara very much. That night, the scars on the wall look malicious to her. Momoko is at work the next day. The other teacher there says that she's in trouble because Chikara hurt a couple kids again, and their parents are complaining about him, and says that if he keeps it up, they'll be forced to take action. Momoko asks the students if they've seen Chikara, and a little girl says that she saw him chasing Kosuke to the bathroom, but it looks like it's too late because a scream interrupts her. Kosuke is bleeding from his face. She asks, "What happened to your face?" She thinks Chikara might have peeled his skin off. Momoko picks him up and runs to the director while Chikara is wiping the blood off his hands. Momoko says that Chikara hurt Kosuke pretty bad and he was finally expelled from class, but that didn't stop him from coming every day, and he continued to scare the other kids. Momoko has a talk with Chikara one day saying that he can't come here anymore. He has to go home now, but he responds, "I don't want to go home." One day, he followed Momoko all the way to her apartment. She invites him in, but her dad is waiting for her, saying the medical association just had a meeting near here, so he decided to stop by. Then he asks who the kid is and wants to look at his face. Her dad asks the question, has his skin always been damaged like this? She says she's not sure. The dad says this isn't his specialty, but his skin is getting thinner and his fingerprints are gone. And asks, doesn't this bother you? He has no idea what this is, and that they should consult a specialist. Momoko is literally dragging Chikara back to his house, saying that his mom must be worried, but he continues to beg, saying, I don't want to go. Chikara's mom thanks Momoko for bringing Chikara home. It seems that she was taking a bath again. Momoko asks if Chikara is going to another school, but she responds they're looking for one right now. Also adds that her father's a doctor and he's worried about Chikara's skin, thinks that she should consult a specialist, but his mom just says back, I don't think it's that serious. Chikara will be a good looking boy soon. It transitions to a pot boiling. The mom and the aunt are cooking something. The mom says she doesn't want it to fail anymore. This time she'll be fine. They follow the instructions. Chikara is sitting in the corner and his mom calls to him, but he doesn't move. She drives him out of the corner and says, we're doing this for you, and puts a tube in his mouth and says, like before, breathe through your mouth, okay? They get the substance that was boiling and dip paintbrushes in it and start spraying it across his body. Once it dried, they start pulling it off of him. Chikara's crying and the mom says it's not good if nothing happens. Within an hour, time finally passes. The mom touches Chikara's head, then walks away saying we failed again, and she goes to the wall and says what went wrong this time? Why didn't the formula work? Her sister says it doesn't work no matter how much we try. We shouldn't do this to him anymore. You know, she's the reasonable one in this situation, and also says maybe it's the ingredients are getting too old and she doesn't want Chikara to suffer anymore, and says look at his skin, we're just pulling it off every time we uncover him. The mom turns around, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to show him his true beauty. I want to see it too. But the mom is still mad. She starts clawing at the wall, saying, I want to see, I want to see. It cuts to Momoko walking and talking with her dad, trying to get him to stay, but leaves anyway. It's weird that she didn't learn her lesson, because now she's walking back by herself to her house. Then suddenly she hears a scream and looks around the corner and sees a woman covered in the same substance that she was covered in earlier. She begins to chase after the perpetrator, then finally catches up to her when she trips. But the woman is apologizing profusely. Then Momoko turns the woman around. It was the aunt. Now they're sitting together and Momoko asks what's the sticky liquid and why was she dumping it on people. The aunt says it was a beauty medicine according to her sister. It was developed by her brother-in-law, her sister's husband, before he died. By using it, her sister secured beauty she wanted, but she wasn't satisfied until she changed Chikara as well. So to save him, the aunt changed the formula of the medicine secretly so it wouldn't work, but it still damages Chikara's skin because of the constant usage, and seeing him like that tears her heart apart. So she started taking it to strangers after that. Next, this person with high heels and a coat, unable to see the faces walking the streets, then passes by a man and says excuse me while opening up the coat and asks him a question. Tell me something, am I beautiful? He screams and runs away while the mysterious figure is laughing. The scene transitions to Momoko and the aunt outside of Chikara's house. The aunt is begging her to stay away. She's telling her it's for her own sake. Please leave before her sister finds out. Momoko ignores her advice and is set on saving Chikara. Then the mysterious figure from earlier runs towards Momoko, grabs a rock and hits her over the head, knocking her out. The mysterious figure is laughing. We can safely say that the mom was the one in the trench coat. Then it cuts to the mom saying that her husband was a modern alchemist. He dedicated his life to the study of an elixir. He worked days without sleeping. It was a process of trial and error. This is the medicine he made. At last, the formula is written in his report. Her husband believed in it, and he tried to make it for himself. He sprayed it all over his body and let it dry. He was close to undying youth. He got an unexpected result, and he died. She could only imagine how frightened he was after seeing something like that. Yes, his looks really changed. The mom said it's a shame because she saw the beauty in his transformed body. She was basically giving a backstory on their lives. But the mom is hopeful that this boiling medicine will work now, but her sister is convincing her not to do it. And the mom starts listing the ingredients that's in the medicine. I like how at the end it says a few drops of deadly poison for the finishing touch, and says in this bottle is a strong acid. It melts just about anything. Then she somehow spills it on her leg, and she goes to her sister to get it off. This acid is penetrative and says, what are you waiting for? Pull the zipper down, hurry, or her muscles will burn too. Her sister hurries to unzip the skin, and the mom slips out of her skin and it drops onto the floor like a costume. Momoko starts narrating, saying that she saw a human with no flesh. The stripes of red muscles on her skinless body wiggled like caterpillars every time she moved. Her legs and her hands were covered with meshes of white tendons that looked like they could snap off with the slightest tug, all moving in and out underneath a translucent membrane. Then tells her sister Maya, we finally got to know the aunt's name, she tells her to wash off the acid off the skin or it would damage it. Then the mom explains that this is what scared her husband to death. The medicine works as a separator of skin and muscles. She found the ultimate beauty in her husband's bare body. You can work out and develop your muscles as much as you want, but it's still no match for the beauty of the bare muscles. Most people will never get to see this true beauty. And says that her husband tried to make an elixir but failed. As a result, she found the ultimate beauty. Maya comes back saying that she washed the skin. The mom tells her to go soak it in the tank and explains that she takes it off, and explains when she takes it off she has to soak it in saline solution so it won't die. She can't live without the skin. It keeps her body moist, so if she keeps her skin off she gets dehydrated very quickly. Suddenly she says they can't make the medicine without the acid, but notices that it's odd that there's not a strong smell coming from the acid. She comes to a realization and says, Maya, you're the one managing the chemicals. What's going on here? Then yells, there was plain water in the bottle. Maya starts apologizing, but the mom starts going off on her, saying that you put the water in the bottle, didn't you? No wonder that it never worked. And she was doing this trying to protect Chikara. Probably thought you're doing the right thing, but you're wrong. And says that her son has the right to see his muscles too and won't let anyone stop him. Momoko thinks that she's going to faint. Chikara's mother was unbelievably arrogant and insane. The mom asks her sister, where did she put the real acid? Maya says that she can't tell her that. The mom gets mad and says, how can you sabotage me? It gets interrupted by Chikara saying that he knows where it's at. He saw his aunt holding this bottle. His mom's like, yes, that's it. That's what I needed. Bring it to me. Chikara opens the bottle. The mom questions what's he doing. He knocks over the tank that has her skin in it and throws acid on it, watching it sizzle and dissolve it. The mom begins to cry out, my skin, and the fumes begin to overtake the room, and Maya opens a window. The mom goes to her saying, my skin is burnt and ruined. Maya, what are you gonna do about it? It's your fault. How are you gonna take care of this? I'll turn into a mummy if you don't do something. It looks like I have to use your skin. I'll rip it off you if I have to. The mom grabs Maya's skin, rips it off, while her son is saying, leave auntie alone. He reaches for one of the legs, tears off some muscles. She falls to the ground and cries out, my muscles. Maya is crying, saying, Momoko, look at me. I used the medicine too, 3 years ago. She's dying. Her skin is torn. Believe me, I never wanted to use the medicine. I was deceived by my own sister. She told me it was going to make me look beautiful. Her idea of beauty is horrible. Momoko then faints.